Hey guys, happy Sunday. Have you ever felt like maybe things aren't fair? Maybe you're playing a game and it's not going your way. Or maybe you look at other people and you say, well, they have cool stuff and I think I should have cool stuff and that would be fair. Well, Jesus talked about that quite a bit. And he told a particular parable about when maybe we feel like God's not being fair. Maybe we feel like we're doing all the right stuff and we should be getting things, but other people are and they're not doing the good stuff that we're doing. So Jesus told this story about a rich man who owned a vineyard. He grew grapes and made wine and grape juice and all sorts of stuff. And so when it was time to harvest the grapes, he needed help. And he would go out into the town and hire people to help him. Now, in Jesus' time, how things worked was if you didn't have a job, you could go into the marketplace early in the morning, and the farmers and the builders would go and they'd look for people who needed work for one day. Maybe they needed help harvesting their fields, or maybe they needed help building something, and they would go in to the marketplace and hire people. So this vineyard owner goes into the marketplace first thing in the morning, probably about 6 o'clock in the morning, super early. And he hires some people and says, come work for me and I'll pay you a day's wage. The Bible tells us it was a denarii, but we don't know exactly how much that was worth, but we know that it was about what the average worker would make in one day. So they go and they start working. About 9 o'clock in the morning, he looks around his fields. He says, you know what? I could use some more workers. And he goes back into town and hires some more people standing around in the marketplace. And he says, come work for me and I'll pay you what's fair. Because they're not working a whole day. And so he sends them into the fields. Around lunchtime, he says, you know what? I could use some more workers. So he goes and he hires people who are still standing around at lunchtime. And he says, I'll pay you what's fair. Sends them off to the field. So these people are working. Some of them have worked a half day. Some of them have worked a little bit of a day. And some of them just started at lunch. But they all work together and they work all afternoon. Then, right around dinner time, he goes into the market one more time, probably to pick something up. And he looks and he sees people who have been standing there all day. And he says, why are you standing here? Why haven't you been working? And they said, nobody hired us. So he says, you know what? Go into my field and I'll pay you something for the day. So they go and they work 1 hour. Then, if we look in Matthew chapter 20, where we find this parable, starting at verse number 9, we find out how he paid them. You see, he had his foreman call all the workers in. He said, pay them from the people who got here last to the people I hired first thing in the morning. So let's look at those verses, starting in Matthew chapter 20, verse 9.
When those hired at 5 o'clock were paid, each received a full day's wage. When those hired first came to get their pay, they assumed they would receive more. But they too were paid a day's wage.
Now, do you think that that was fair? Or do you think that maybe the workers who started first thing in the morning thought they deserved more than the guys who started with 1 hour left to go? But instead, everybody got paid the same thing. Now, maybe that doesn't feel very fair. And you know what? It's not very fair. And so those workers who started first thing in the morning complained to the rich man, and he said, hey, we deserve more. And the owner of the land looked at him and said, what do you mean you deserve more? We had a deal. And our deal said that I would pay you 1 day's wages for 1 day's work. You've worked 1 day, and I've paid you for 1 day. He said, but you paid those other guys for a full day's work and they only worked an hour. And he said, so? Am I not allowed to do what I want with my money? It's my money, right? It's my vineyard. We had a deal. You work the day and I pay you for the day. What if I want to be kind and extra generous and maybe a little unfair to those other people? We had a deal. And Jesus tells us that sometimes God does things that don't seem fair to us. And they make us wonder, what is God doing? I don't think that's fair. God says, do you get to tell me who I can be gracious to or who I can bless? I bless you, don't I? I've given you salvation. I've given you everything you need. Aren't I being fair? Aren't I being right to my word? Well, yeah. You see, we like to think we know what fair is. But our fair usually looks better for us than other people. God knows what's fair and what's right. And He promises to be just and to be gracious. So who are we to tell God, you're not being fair? You know what else? We also know that our sin deserves something too. When we do things wrong, we don't want people to be fair to us. We want them to be gracious. And we want God to be gracious to us. Sometimes it can be a little bit better when God's not fair. So I encourage you, whenever you're tempted to look at somebody else and say, hey, they're getting more than me. Maybe think about all the blessings that God's given you and all the promises that God has kept to you. Now, I told you last week there would be an announcement this week. We will be having VBS sort of this year. We're going to be doing a VBS at home. There'll be some announcements and a sign-up sheet will be coming on the church website within the next couple weeks, and I'll keep you up to date for that. Tell mom and dad to watch their emails. And we'll be doing some science experiments and some fun stuff together here on YouTube. And we will get to do some kind of VBS. It'll be a little bit different, as is most things this year. But it'll still be fun and we'll still be able to do it together. So keep an eye on those emails and keep watching here. And we'll keep you updated. It'll be a really good time. We're going to do that at the end of July, the last week in July. So make sure you watch out and you look for what's coming. Have a great Sunday, guys. We love you. God bless and see you soon.